Shalom and Bruchim Abayim. My name is Rabbi Yitz'chat Shapira, and I'm your host of this program called Pninei Torah, or in English, the Pearls of the Torah. How much I love to study the Torah, because every week, every time we connect, we pull a pearl from this Torah portion together, and as we learn specifically how to look for the Messiah. Sanhedrin 99:8 tell us that all the words of the prophets have been given unto us so that we can find the Messiah. And I believe that this Torah portion this week, we're getting ready for Jacob ladder, the story of Jacob ladder in the next couple of weeks. But this is the only Torah portion that is actually dedicated to Isaac. There are three Torah portions that are dedicated to Abraham, one only to Isaac, and 5 Torah portion for Jacob. And this Torah portion is quite interesting, quite fascinating, starting with the words Toldot, meaning in Hebrew, generation. And if you have your Bible, you can turn it to Genesis 25, as usually we are going to look at the Hebrew. And it says in the Hebrew, Ve'ele Toldot Yitz'chak ben Avraham, Avraham olid et Yitz'chak. There's a funny thing here in the Hebrew. It says here the generation of Isaac, son of Abraham, and then it says Abraham birthed Isaac. It repeats itself twice, and the rabbis asked the question, why it's even repeating itself twice, and explained it. They said they wanted to make sure that everybody will read the Torah and know that it says in the Talmud that Isaac was his father. Son. He looked just like him. They said that his face even resembled Abraham's face, okay? And here in the Torah portion, we actually see God plan for redemption for all humanity, for all humankind. This is an amazing Torah portion. We see God plan for salvation, and at the same time, we see God plan for conflict too at the same time. We read here, Yitz'chat ben 40 shana bekachto et Rivka. He was 40 years old, and just as a chronology, he gave birth, according to Chazal, to his 2 children, here Jacob and Edom, or Esav, when he was roughly 60 years old. So it took them 20 years to conceive. So those of you today who watch the video, maybe who are looking to conceiving a child, look what Isaac had to go through. It's amazing. Now, it says that Rivka was barren, and then in verse 22, that's the verse that I want to deal with for a moment with you. It says here, both children were inside the womb of Rivka, and she asked, why is it, my God, why is it? And she went to inquire on God. This is a very important point that I want to bring just before I get to my main point here today. She inquired upon him. The word here in Hebrew, inquire, it's not like praying and say, excuse me, God, I'm just praying, I need an answer. The word here in Hebrew, inquiry, lidrosh, literally mean she went forcefully to God. She demanded to know the Lord. Sometimes when we pray prayers, but our prayers are defeated. We say, God, reveal yourself, show yourself. But really, there's a model of prayer here that is really important for us to follow, that suggests that when we really seeking God, when we want to find God's will, what we have to do, we have to go to God with power. We have to go to God with authority and say, God, I will not move, I will not shake until you give me an answer. And that is exactly what Rivka did. And interestingly enough, verse 23, God is answering her here, and God says, Shnei goim. You see, the word goy is not a bad word, it's mean nations. 2 nations, they are in your womb, and 2 set of people will be there, and they will spread, and they will separate each other, okay? and something going to happen to the young one as opposed to the old one, according to what Hashem is saying. God is already preparing this family to the things that are going to happen. And here is the interesting thing, verse 25, that's the verse I want you to look at with me. It says, the first one came forth and he is red. That's literally the word Adom in Hebrew, mean red. It also mean bloody. He will be full of blood. Isn't it interesting that in his name there is a metaphor to the fact that he was a man himself that loved game, he loved hunting, he loved blood, he was violence. Even in his name already suggests what he's going to be like kulo ke'ader se'ar. So he come in hairy. The word se'ar in Hebrew is the word of hairy, the one that is filled with hair. Vayikare shmo Isav. Now when we read the story, it's difficult not to take side in this story. In one hand, we have this wicked guy, as we read in the story, that is willing to sell his birthright, and his name is Isav. And in the other side, in verse 26, it says, "Ve'acharei ken yatsa achiv vayado ochezet ba'akev Isav." He came out, and his hand is holding the heel of Isav, and his name will be Yaakov. Yitz'chat ben 60 shana. So it took 20 years. Yitz'chat ben 60 shana beledet otam. Isaac was 60 years old when that happened. So 20 years later. Now, notice that he's holding his heel. This is significance for that. But before we get there, I would like to suggest to you that we have to look at this Torah portion prophetically as every Torah portion is in our quest to seek the Messiah. Now, the Rabbi suggests that there is a great commentary, a great midrash on this that I want you to be familiar with or at least be exposed to. That, as we all know, the name of Yaakov is changed later on to the name of Israel. He is a picture of the Jewish people. That's why we say the God of Jacob, the God of Israel. All the 12 tribes came from Yaakov. That's a picture of the Jewish people today. But I want you to notice what's happened according to the Midrash here. The Midrash says this, and I quote, "And Jacob died and he was resurrected." His name Jacob assumed a different meaning. Jacob also literally mean, the name Yaakov literally mean heel or result, consequence. In essence, what the rabbis are telling us that is absolutely incredible is that when they're coming out of Rivka's womb, Yaakov died. He was clinically dead, and the only way that Yaakov came, and the rabbi said he was resurrected from the dead, is when he grabbed onto the heel of Esav and came out. That's why his name literally means, Yaakov literally means heel. That's what his name means. He was dead and he is alive. And that is also a prophetic picture. Perhaps the way we have to look at this Torah portion as a prophetic picture of the resurrection of the Jewish people. Paul tells us in Romans 11:26 that all Israel will be saved, and he's speaking in Romans 11 that if their death means so many blessings to the world, what the resurrection actually going to mean to the world. So really this Torah portion has to deal with the resurrection of Jacob. And I want to shake everything that you thought about before and suggest to you that the one who brought the resurrection upon Jacob, Yaakov, is actually none other than his brother. What an irony is that his brother became the enemy in this story, but it is the brother who actually, as you're going to see in a moment, that Rabbinic Judaism said that he is the hero of this story actually here. He is holding his hand, and in a minute I want to look into that. Kli Yakar, it's a very famous commentary, continue even to explain that there is a prophetic picture here of the reason why Yaakov was born after Esau. And he says this, it says in the Torah that he's holding his hand and he's coming after Esau, okay? In the last days, Kli Yakar explained to us, similarly, it will be Yaakov who is being restored back to become the leader again, right? So everybody know the story. Yaakov became in essence the elders and the leader. Something took place, and it took place down the road. And what Kli Yakar suggests, he said, this is a prophetic picture of the things that will happen in the future, where Yaakov or Israel or the Jewish people will become the leaders of Esau. Well, that is just absolutely an amazing analysis. Who is Yaakov? Let's start. Yaakov is Israel. Israel is the Jewish people. Who is Esau? Esau is Edom. Edom is representing Christianity. It's a picture of Christianity, and more specifically, it's a picture of Yeshua himself. If you take the name Esav in Hebrew, Esau, and you flip the letter, you get the name Yeshua. Yeshua is a picture of Esav. Now think about this for a second. How did Yaakov was raised from the dead? Yaakov was raised of the dead from Esau. Esau is a picture of Yeshua. Yeshua will be the one who will raise the Jewish people and will restore them back from the dead. What an amazing prophetic picture of the things that are to come. Let's peel this onion just a little bit deeper. One of our famous commentator explained the following. His name was Baal Aturim, the holding of the columns. And he actually explained, similarly with what I explained to you, that the real hero of the story is not Jacob, is not Rivka, and it's not Isaac. The real hero of the story, shockingly, is Esau. Although he appeared to Yaakov and to his father and mother as the wicked one, he was, in one level, he was a wicked, but in another level, he was the one who is the hero of the story. Now, we read in Gematria, the name Esau is equivalent to the number 376. Okay, this is important because in the next three Torah portions, you're going to read that Judah and Tamar gave a birth to a name named Peretz, who broke through. The name of the Poretz literally also equal 376. It is not a coincidence, but there is another word according to Baal Aturim that also is equivalent to the same value, and it is the Hebrew word shalom, peace. He suggesting, this is a shocking statement, that Esau equal peace. Esau, who is a flip of the name Yeshua, is the one who is not just going to bring a resurrection and a restoration for Jacob, but he is the Prince of Peace. That's why the Hebrew word, that's why he's called, according to Isaiah chapter 9, he called the Prince of Peace. How shocking that the Hebrew word Esau is equivalent in Hebrew to the word peace. Now, the rabbi continue to explain this because he says that it starts here in the word, here are the generation. The Torah starts with the word, here the generation. Now notice that the word generation, Toldot, is spelled without the vav. Okay, the second vav is missing, but in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, it says, here's the generation. The word, the generations, there, both vav exist. Why? because the world was in completeness. The world was in wholeness. Here the world is not in wholeness, but there will be one who will bring back the world back to wholeness, and it's going to be the Prince of Peace. He's going to restore and rectify the world back to the original condition before the sins of Adam. Amazing. Now he explained that there are two references. Baal HaTurim explained that there are two references that related to the word shalom. Now, interestingly enough, he says, and I quote from Baal HaTurim, he says, Esav begimatria means shalom. Esav or Yeshua in Gematria mean peace. That although his name is Shalom, he came to destroy the world. Now, let me explain just to you what he means when he say destroy the world, because it says in the text, in the blessing of Isaac, he say, upon your sword you will live. This is an important thing. People ask the question all the time. Well, Yeshua said that he came to bring division to the world, not to bring peace. But Baal HaTurim said before one can bring peace to the world, he has to go to war. That's why it says by Rabbi Vali. Rabbi Vali was one of our great rabbis, the rabbi of the Ramchal. He says that the Yeshua was the Messiah, son of Joseph, and he first have to bring destruction to the world. He have to bring division, not destruction, division to the world. Because that's exactly the same point that make here by Baal HaTurim. It says, Ve'al charbecha tichyeh, literally mean, upon your sword you will live, you will have shalom. Okay? So Esav name means shalom, but first you have to bring division. Well, there is no other name than the name of Yeshua that brought destruction and division upon the Jewish people. But then Baal HaTurim continue to quote the Aaronic benediction, a benediction that we say every Shabbat in the synagogue and even in the morning prayer. Yevechecha Adonai ve'ishmarecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'ichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom. And he will bring you peace. What I'm trying to tell you, I hope you get it, that Baal HaTurim says that the final peace will be brought back by Esav. And who is going to bring the final peace to? To Yaakov. It is going to be him who first appears like he is fighting with Yaakov. That's the first, this is the Torah portion here. But notice actually what's happening a little bit later in the story. A little bit later in the story, we see that Yaakov and Esav are actually reconciling. So that's exactly what the Rabbi said. The first time Yaakov and Esav fought, Esav brought that, okay? But it is going to be Esav himself who ran into Yaakov to reconcile the two together. What an amazing thing. And that by his name, Esav equals Shalom, he is going to do that. That is exactly how what he is going to do. That's what the Rabbi says. Remember that what he has done, so he's going to bring Shalom back. Esav, Christianity, is going to bring Shalom back to Yaakov. And not only that, Yaakov will become yet again the leader, just like the days of old, because remember, prophecy is cyclical. So you might ask yourself the question, what is this peace going to look like? Well, the answer found to you in Deuteronomy chapter 7, if you want to go there very, very quickly. Deuteronomy 7, verse 12, Parashat Akev, and he says, and therefore it will be, if you will hear the mishpatim, the judgment, and you will do them, God will give you the mercy. Look at the Hebrew word there, interesting. Et a chesed. He's not going to give you through your works. Well, there's some part of it. If you do it, I am going to give you grace. The message of Esau is actually a message of grace, amazingly. Yaakov thought that Esau is going to come and he is going to kill him. But instead of that, he hugged him, he exercised grace. The Torah here says that he will bring grace that he sworn to our fathers. Now, the Hebrew word ekev tishmeun, if you will hear the word ekev, because is the same word as the word heal. You see in your Bible the word because, you don't see the word heal, but this is exactly what it is. In essence, he's saying this: when Israel, let me explain to you prophetically, when Israel holding on yet again to the heel of Esau, Israel will receive grace. It is a prophecy, it's a prophetic picture of what God is going to do. When Israel hold on to it, he will write, it says in Jeremiah 31, he will write the Torah upon their heart and he will grant them grace. Exactly what's going to happen. So the peace that is going to be brought by Mashiach is going to be brought only when Yaakov recognized Esau. You see, this word heal is equivalent in Hebrew to 172. If you read the Ten Commandments, you know that there are actually 172 words in the Ten Commandments. In essence, the only one that can write the Ten Commandments, I'm talking about the Big Ten that represent the Big 613, is Esau. He is the only one who can bring it back to be written upon our heart, because he is the one that the heel belongs to him. And if we don't hold on to his heel, we are stuck in the womb and we are dead as Jewish people. That is the reason all Judaism teaches that we are today in a spiritual exile. This battle for the recognition of the heel, to this recognition of this heel, started in Genesis chapter 3, where we read that there was a battle between, it says, and I will put an enmity between you and the woman, and between this seed and her seed, that shall be bruised thy head, and you shall bruise their heel. This battle has been going on since the beginning of the earth, between Hashem and His anointed one, the Mashiach, and between Hasatan himself, who does not want the Jewish people to be born again, to come out of the womb. He wanted to stay in the womb, because the Rabbi says when Yaakov was in the womb, he was clinically dead. Amazing, just absolutely amazing. But notice that it says here in the Torah, and I quote for you from Torah Tahor, he says, when the enmity that is in between the serpent and man described with the word, Hu Yeshafach Rosh, he stepped upon the head of the serpent, right? He stepped upon it and he smashed it. The word head there is the Hebrew word first, okay? Now think about it for a second. What is the first letter in the name of Jacob? The first letter in the name of Jacob is the letter Yod. In essence, what the Rabbi said is only when Jacob held on to Esau, he received back the letter Yod. He was dead without the letter Yod. The Yod is the number 10. 10 represents the number of minyan, of righteous. It's a letter that represents righteousness. But without the Yod, without this letter, without the smashing of the serpent head in Hebrew is first. It's literally mean first. The first, we do not have a chance to be born again. In essence, what I'm trying to tell you, that this Torah portion does not just dealing with the birth of Yaakov and the conflict, but it's dealing with something much, much deeper. It's dealing with the birth of what I call the Jewish version of being born again. People ask all the time the question, what does it mean to be born again? Well, God says that He will change our name. That is exactly what He did with Jacob. He took him, the Ekev, and He transformed him to Yaakov. He gave him basically this letter, this Yud. By the way, the name of Yod is the beginning of God name. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yehudi, Yud, Hey, Vav. It's God name. Yehuda, Judah, Yud, Hey, Vav. Yeshurun, Yud. It all starts with God imprinting His name. And how can we get the letter of God imprinting His name? The rabbis tell us the only way we can get this imprint of this letter is by recognizing that the Messiah went before us and stepped on Hasatan and He grabbed the letter. If He grabbed the letter, Yod, it means that He's the owner of the letter Yod, which means that only He can bring it and give it back to us again. Look at me now prophetically. There's just so much in this Torah portion and I have so little time, but look with me for a moment. It says in the Torah, it says, let's read this verse 26 again. It says, this is talking about the birth of Jacob. And it says, after that came forth his brother, and his hand had hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Yaakov. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bore them. Now look at this for a second. He grabbed on to, with his hand, he's grabbed onto his heel. Well, the Hebrew word hand is the Hebrew word yad, okay? The Hebrew word for the letter, the yod letter is the word yod. Yad and yod is the exactly same word. In essence, he extended himself and he was able to reach to Esau, who is called the Prince of Peace, and glue himself and get back the letter Yod and becoming what's known as Yaakov, Jacob. And that is in essence the entire gospel. That's why Rav Barbanel said, and I quote, the soul of Esau reincarnated in the Christian Jesus, that is was he was a man of desert, a man of quarrel, a strife. He is absolutely right. Yeshua had to be man of strife. That's why the blessing of Isaac says, "Ve'al charbecha tichya," on your sword you would live. Yeshua was striving. He had to fight against a Satan. If he did not went to war against a Satan, if he did not went to war against a Sanhedrin, none of us would have been saved today. That's why you have to do that, so we can truly say the Aaronic benediction and receive the Prince of Peace upon our own life. So what does it have to do with us today? Well, Yeshua in the Sermon of the Mount says this: do not think that I came to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to abolish them, but I came to raise them, not to fulfill them, not to empty them, but to raise them, to give the Torah further validity. For amen, truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass, which they pass, not one yod, no one tag will pass from the Torah until everything is accomplished. Yeshua chose to use the term yod and tag because he is referring back to the yod that he himself owned up in the garden. He had to give something up in order for the yud to be written upon our hearts. And he says, please understand, I am the owner of the yud. In Deuteronomy 7:12, in the Mount Sinai, I am the owner of the Ten Commandments. I am the owner of the Torah. I am Lord over all those things. So you don't have authority to come and change a jot and a tittle because I am the owner of this. The Torah tells us in Deuteronomy, curse it a man who changed one yod or tag from the Torah. Why? Because why is a man cursed if he changed the Torah? Here's the reason. Because the Torah does not belong to us. The Torah belongs to Mashiach. He opened his door and welcomed us into his mitzvot. But God help us if we want to change and transform the mitzvot. So many times people say to me, well, we want to observe things the way we want to observe. No, it's not your place to do that. The Torah belongs to Mashiach. He is the owner of the Yod. And only if we adhere to Torah properly, two things will happen to us. Number one, we will be born again. Number two, we will have peace upon our life, unlike any other time in our own life. So the question I would like to leave you today with is simple. When you observe the Torah, when you study Torah, do you feel every day, and I'm not talking about once, I'm talking about every day, that you are being born again? Or not? Number two, when you observe the Torah, do you feel shalom, peace, unlike any other peace? This is a good question that I believe we all have to ask ourselves. What the irony is that the one who brought the quarrel in the story is also the one, in the end of the day, that will bring reconciliation. His name is Yeshua. So if we take upon ourselves this mantle of Messiah today, we can become those who prepare the ground for his final return of Esav. But this time he's not coming as Esav. He's going to come as Yeshua. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. As always, I'd like to remind you that we are supported by you, and all of this takes resources and effort and time to prepare, to study, and to put in place. If you're blessed by those, check us out in Yeshivat Shuvu, look us up, and we would love to dialogue with you if you have any other question. We wish you Shabbat Shalom, and let us all turn to be like Esav, the Prince of Peace. Litrot.